Half a day, and good afternoon. The Committee on General Government Operations, Appropriation, and Housing is now called to order. Today is Monday, May 16, 2022. Time now is 2:01. Notice for this public hearing were disseminated via email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets on Monday, May 9th, and then followed by May 11th. Again, today is Monday, May 16, 2022, and the time is 2:01. This afternoon, the public hearing is specifically for Bill 257-36 LS, introduced by Amanda L. Shelton, co-sponsored by myself, Speaker Therese Terlaje, Vice Speaker Tina Rose Muña Barnes, Senator Mary Camacho Torres, Senator Clynton Ridgell, an act to increase the cost of living allowance payments for the government of Guam retirees and to appropriate $15,945,600 from the general fund to the Department of Administration for fiscal year 2023. Fiscal note for Bill 257-36 LS was requested on February 24th. It was received and disseminated to all senators via email by the Committee on Rules on March 4th. Those testifying on behalf of Bill 257-36 LS are invited to the panel, and we have the Director for the Retirement Fund, Ms. Paula Blas. We have the Director of BBMR, Mr. Lester Carlson, and the Director of Department of Administration, Mr. Ed Byrne. The general rules for this public hearing. Written testimony shall be submitted to the committee. Please provide my legislative staff with your written testimony for photocopy. Testimonies may be read, and lengthy testimonies should be summarized to about 5 minutes, but if you need additional time, you're allowed to do that. Those testifying will be allowed to present oral testimony. Once you're done, please remain in the room for questions or for additional testimony as may be desired by the members of the committee. Questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda, which is in reference to Bill 257-36, an act to increase cost of living allowance for the government of Guam retirees and to appropriate $15,945,600 from the general fund to the Department of Administration for fiscal year 2023. Once you are done, please remain in the room for questions or for additional testimony as may be desired by the members of the committee. Oral questions and testimonies shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. Personal inference as to the character or the motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. I'd ask the panel that if you feel that there's a personal inference by anyone, please raise your hand so I can recognize that. And the same is offered to my colleagues. Personal inference as to the character or motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Any violation of general rule will result in removal from the public hearing room. Proper form and decorum shall be practiced by all present in the public hearing room for these proceedings. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum will be restricted from providing oral testimony and will be removed from the room. When you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on and that you speak into the microphone. Please state your name and your title for the record. I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues that have joined me this afternoon, beginning with the author of the bill, Senator Amanda Shelton, co-sponsors, myself, and Speaker Therese Terlaje, and Senator Terlaje. I will ask the author of the bill to provide her opening statement. Ma'am.
Mr. Chair, half a day, everyone, and to our colleagues, thank you for hosting this hearing today and for allowing me to speak on the bill. I want to thank our co-sponsors as well, Mr. Chair, Speaker Therese Terlaje, Vice Speaker Tina Muña Barnes, and Senators Mary Camacho Torres and Clynton Ridgell for their support of our GovGuam retirees. Bill 257-36 LS is an act to increase the cost of living allowance, the COLA, lump sum payment to help GovGuam retirees who have been economically impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic and years of the rise in the cost of living on Guam. The measure appropriates a little over, just about $16 million from the general fund to the Department of Administration for the cost of living allowance to increase the COLA payment from $2,000 to $2,200 in FY 2023, and then to increase the COLA payments in increments of $100 until it reaches $2,500 in FY 2026. The last increase to COLA was in FY 2015, and that was from $1,800 to $2,000 per retiree. And so for the past 7 years, the cost of living on Guam has certainly increased for everyone. We see it in the cost of housing, utilities, health insurance, food, gas, and the cost of living allowance for our retirees has not increased. And this has put a strain on the fixed incomes of many of our Manamku in our community. Today, Mr. Chair, we celebrated Senior Citizens Month with a proclamation and a resolution recognizing all of the good work and the many contributions of our Manamku to our community. And this is one way that we continue to take care of our elders of our Saina, who have given so much to the people of Guam, who have built up our government, served in the government of Guam. And this increase, a long-term increase over the next 5 years, is a small step for us to make a big difference in the lives of over 7,000 plus retirees in our community. So I want to thank you very much for hearing this bill. I look forward to all of the testimony today, and I want to thank all of the retirees who have approached us, Mr. Chair. I know you've gotten many calls. We meet them out in the community asking us for this kind of support, and we've given support to our working class people. We've raised the minimum wage. We've increased the minimum wage. We've been able to give financial assistance to our small businesses to keep our people working. We've given local stimulus programs to those most affected by the pandemic. And this modest increase to the annual cost of living allowance will help take care of our retirees in the same way and bring them a little relief and security that we know will go a long way during these very uncertain times. So I look forward to the testimony and the discussion from our colleagues to help us strengthen this bill and support our Manamku. Sutuas Maasi, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Shelton. And as the panel, we have the representative from the Retirement Fund. Ms. Paula, if you can just introduce yourself and then go ahead and speak about the bill, your opinion of the bill, and any comments you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With regards to Bill 257-36, the only comment I have regarding this would be the appropriation amount that is actually being mentioned here. In January of 2022, when the executive budget was being prepared, we submitted a projection of how many retirees and survivors would be on the payroll as of 9/29/2022. That number came out to about 7,475 combined, both DB and DC. At a projection of 2,000 for each retiree, our request was 14,950,000. If you were to use that same number, the 7,475, at 2,200, the amount's going to come out to 16,445,000. So it would be short. Okay, so it's kind of, we still have 4 months pretty much left in the fiscal year. And just based on the numbers that we're seeing now with regards to what we projected, we're kind of tracking close to the number of people that are actually going to take advantage of retirement. Given the current increases in the teacher pay And uniform personnel, we may see a reduction in some of them deferring retirement, but we haven't been notified by any of them just yet. So with that said, it's just the amount that's actually being projected.
Ms. Paula, would you be able to comment that such as with the pay raises that have gone into effect, that most of the folks that could benefit an increase in their retirement may delay it by about a year, if I'm correct?
If they want to be able to see a difference in what they could actually get as an annuity, they'd have to wait at least a year to realize that salary so that we can include it and incorporate it into the calculation of their annuity.
All right, thank you. Mr. Lester, do you have any comments you want to make?
I don't have any comments other than reiterating what Mrs. Bloss had said. When she gives us a number in January, it's a fluid number. We know closer to the time that the budget's actually being finalized, what those numbers, they kind of tighten up a little bit. And it's always kind of been a really good estimate at the time. Similarly, you know, our general fund revenue projections were a good estimate at the time. And thankfully they're, you know, coming in well above what it is that we thought we were going to get. So I think it's something that's workable, definitely. I think that as was mentioned earlier, there are rising costs that aren't being addressed with some of the adjustments that are made to those that are working. So we're talking about older people and supplementing their income to be able to keep up with the rising costs. So I feel the measure is thoroughly warranted and doable.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Byrne, did you have anything other than you be the recipient to disperse it?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maybe I look forward to being a recipient. I would support what my colleague has just said. I believe that we can fund this amount in 2023. The only thing that I really want to add is, of course, this does amount to an improvement in pension benefits. It will therefore affect the pension deficit, which was, you know, being reduced pretty quickly. There might be a little pause in that because the whole of the additional amount actuarially to be recognized will be recognized, or most of it will be recognized in the first year, which will be 2022.
All right, thank you. Madam Speaker, do you have any questions for the panel? And then you'll be followed by Senator Tyree.
Hi, thank you for your testimony. Director Bloss, can you just expand on, has the retirement fund itself considered raising or, you know, or had any type of discussion regarding this COLA amount? So this bill proposes to go from $2,000 to $2,200. So it's a $200 increase and then $100 increases after that. And I just want to know if there's any, if the fund itself has had any discussions or calculations done for it as to what amount is warranted, what increase. I think we can all agree there's been a change in the cost of living, but yeah, what amount might be warranted?
Only because this is a general fund obligation, and the funds come from general fund. The fund has not taken a position to actually calculate what that COLA amount would be. It's a fixed dollar amount, a lump sum,
Yes.
you know, amount that is being projected. If you were to try to calculate what the amount should be, normally it would be a percentage,
Right.
you know, that would be applied. The concern I think you would probably have is if you try to apply a percentage, those with the lower annuities would get much less than those with higher annuities. And right now, the majority of our retirees receive less than $40,000 a year.
Right, so that's significant, right? So, but I guess I just was wondering if we're trying to keep up with the cost of living, if we had any numbers to reflect that. Like, you know, I saw, for example, I think it was, give me a second. I had done some research as well in an attempt to also do a bill. And what I was looking at was they had done this federally, approved an increase, let me just see, Social Security. And they were going to adjust their COLA benefits 5.9%. That was announced October 13, 2021, and was going to go into effect January 2022. So I tried to look at, you know, what our numbers are on Guam for cost of living and what an adjustment. And it looks, of course, this one has not been adjusted in a while. And so that's why I was wondering if the retirement fund had seen other retirement funds, what percentages they had used, and if there are other factors that we should be considering.
We don't determine what those percentages are going to be. And if you're comparing it with the federal COLA or Social Security COLA, it isn't the same.
I know, I just was
Yeah.
looking at, you know, they used a cost of living adjustment based on a standardized number for cost of living increases, right?
Yes.
Across the nation. So that's why ours is, you know, we're just designating a number, and I just wanted to know if we could tie that to anything so that it's kind of more scientific, that it's tied to an actual cost of living. And if it hasn't been adjusted since 2015, you know, maybe it needs to be more for some, you know, or yeah, just wanted to know whether $100 a year is reasonable. If the fund hasn't discussed this, then that's okay. I guess I was just wondering, maybe they had studied funds across the different states.
Yeah,
So what about, when you said that the majority of those are making 40,000 or less, the majority of our current retirees, or is that the retirees as of September 1995, or are those the retirees all the way to today, that the majority of them are below 40,000?
It's as of today.
As of today. All right, yeah. So that's important, right? And I think we do need to address those, and it is an issue that I think we've been confronted with when on a continuous basis. That those who are receiving less than 40,000, it's not enough for them to adequately take care of themselves, let alone their families. And so
That's only pre-.
that's just an issue. Does any of you have any information as to cost of living increases on Guam in general? Not necessarily this COLA, but in general, the consumer price index, I think, is what we use on some, you know, that they do measure that. I think I looked at BSP's numbers for they had done some studies, and I think they do it every year. Just trying to make sure which ones I received. This one was for 2020. So the last numbers that I had seen from BSP were from 2020 regarding CPI data for Guam. Do you have any position on that? Do you think we should tie it to the actual percentages of increase on Guam? None? Mr. Carlson, Mr. Byrne? All right. All right. So what about then we know that you're estimating a certain amount for the line agencies. Do we have an estimate for these autonomous agencies? they're not here, so I just wanted to know what impact this would have on them.
For the autonomous agencies, our projection in terms of account was, I think, 1,347 people.
For all of the autonomous agencies?
Yes.
Okay.
That's for the 8
8.
autonomous agencies that are usually listed.
Okay. All right, thank you. So we can just calculate that by 22,
Yes.
2,000 and then 2,200, get the difference? All right. But you would be able to provide those estimates by agency, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And Ms. Paula, when would be a estimated month when you'll be able to provide us a comfortable estimate number? Because I know that it's going to fluctuate. You're going to know in July if it even moves up or even drastically drops. So would we say July or?
Normally, it's in July. I usually give it to OFB
Okay.
prior to the August budget talks.
Okay, thank you. Senator Tello, do you have any questions for the panel?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Mr. Chair, sorry, and good afternoon to my colleagues and those who are here this afternoon. Good afternoon. Of course, the speaker brought up the price index, usually used by the Consumer Price Index, and it's based out of the Department of Labor, and it also has a CPI inflationary calculator that they also use when determining any kind of increase, especially to address inflation. And the amount here is just basically a number, with no justification as to why we're increasing it. In fact, when we first had COLA, there was really no real, calculations as to why COLA was even given. They just came up with let's do 1,500 at one time, and then one year they went further down to I think it was 1,100 or something, or 13, and then went back up, but there was nothing really, giving any kind of guidance or scale to review in these numbers. So, like the federal government, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but from my research, the federal government usually makes these adjustments every year for the cost of inflation. And based on the location that you're living in, if you're living in Texas versus you're living in California, it actually varies when it comes to adjusting any kind of retirement annuities that are given. So this is just a flat rate, to everyone. And it also includes those who are living off island. Now, would you say that when there's a retiree living on Guam versus a retiree living in the States, that retiree on Guam actually, our funding, the money that's given, is yielded back to our economy here on this island versus one off island? Is that? Paula? You're with retirement.
If they live off island,
I can't hear you. If you can also move your microphone a little bit closer, because your mask is really muffling.
if they live off island, I would assume that they would be spending it.
Off island, correct? Yeah, it's common sense, right? To do that. The majority of retirees living on Guam, you mentioned earlier, make below $40,000 in annuities, correct? Okay. Do you see, your personal opinion and based on what other jurisdictions when it comes to retirement, anyone making from $80,000 to $100,000 a year in annuities would see any kind of adjustments made annually to their annuities? Or is there a certain amount that people assess the cost of living, and inflation starts at like 40,000 or 30,000, and anything in that range would see an adjustment based on the cost of living, versus giving an adjustment for someone who makes 50 to 60 to 70, $100,000. In other jurisdictions, do you still see an increase of I guess, inflationary increase like they do in the federal government when they assess?
If somebody made over 40, I guess whatever your income is, you know, whether it be 40 or 80, I believe your expenses are actually linked to your income. So it's, as far as inflation, you're all paying for the same thing. If you go to the store and you buy a loaf of bread for $2, same person's paying the same amount for that loaf of bread. So I can't sit here and actually say that just because somebody makes 80 versus somebody who makes 40, that their lifestyles are all linked to their income.
So this is a cost of living allowance versus, you know, do you think that's more appropriate than cost of living adjustment?
Well, this is the COLA that's actually paid out is not added to their annuity. So it's given one time and it's for that year, and then it gets wiped clean till the following year.
Okay, so it's all given like around November, December, this allowance, because it's cost of living
Well,
allowance, right?
That was something that was determined by the legislature.
What is the sentiment amongst the retirees? Would they rather see this cost of living allowance be divided up into, 12 months versus, one lump sum in November, December?
Nope. I've actually asked that question around COLA time, and I knew at one time in the Budget Act it was actually a option for them to take it monthly, but no one exercised that option.
So once again, you don't see any kind of methodology used in this Bill 257 on the amounts? The determination, the scale, the cost price index, you don't see anything in here. It's just a flat rate just because, right?
It's a flat rate.
With no justification.
I can't say whether or not there's any justification
At all.
on it.
Okay, the other thing I have you had a chance to see Bill 285?
Is that
It's the same thing. It's the COLA, but it's called the cost of living adjustment. Have you had opportunity to see that? If you haven't, it's okay. I'm hoping the chairman is also going to have a public hearing on a bill that was introduced talking about the cost of living adjustment and doing it with a methodology intact, and using a sliding scale that I just spoke about earlier for those who, live from 40,000 and below versus those who are above. But if you haven't had a chance, I appreciate if you could look at that, because the chairman promised that, he's hoping to hear that bill as well. I received already a fiscal note on Bill 285, so I know, Lester, you had an opportunity to look at that. You did submit a fiscal note for that, so I appreciate it. And hopefully we can really get down to what we really need to do is help those individuals, our Manumku, who live on a fixed rate and stay on that fixed rate for years and years while our cost of gas and living and food is going up. They're not giving any opportunity to stay afloat here, especially they don't have an opportunity to go out and get another job to do this. And I think it's something that we should be doing every year with a group, a commission to get together to look at this, adjustment for those living, way below poverty level. I know that you have some retirees who only make like $10,000 a year, and that's what they survive on. So I definitely know that this is something that we need to adjust. The last time it was adjusted was in 2014. Also, I know that this Bill 257 doesn't codify it. I also introduced a bill, I think it was prior to 257, to actually codify the cost of living allowance and not just rely on a budget bill to provide this type of assistance to our retirees. Because there's nothing in the law currently that codifies this, that requires us to do this. It's only in the budget bill. And based on Bill 257, I don't know where we would put this in the Guam Code Annotated, what section this law would go in. It doesn't have an article, a title, GCA, nothing. So hopefully we can clear up a lot of the concerns to our Manamco who are living, even below paycheck to paycheck. So I thank you for being here and looking forward to the next opportunity to discuss, Bill 285 when it comes up for a public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Speaker, you had one follow-up question?
Yeah, so again, so the Social Security increases automatically every year based on the CPI index. And for example, from 2017, it's increased 2.2%, 2018 2.8, 2019 1.6, 2020 1.3, and then 2021 is 5.9. So my concern is that this 2021 was such a large increase compared to the other years, and I just wonder if that's warranted on Guam as well, because when I track the Guam CPI, we're very similar actually for those years, starting with 2017. Yeah, our theirs is 2.0, ours is 2.5%. Theirs was 2.8, ours is 2.6. Theirs was 1.6, ours is 1.8. 2020, theirs was 1.3, ours is 1.7. And so I'm just thinking for 2021, because they recognize such a large increase, there may be something there. But I wanted to clarify, so in Title IV, there's a section 6204, which talks about the compensation of public employees, and it charges that the governor may institute a cost of living adjustment called COLA, not part of the employee's base salary. It shall be considered as part of the base pay for retirement purposes. And then it talks about the governor may defer, uniformly reduce, or uniformly increase the COLA adjustments according to economic conditions, and the Director of Administration shall consult with the Department of Commerce in determining the appropriate methodology to be applied. The feasibility of adopting the federal COLA system in whole or in part shall be considered by the Director of Administration. So this looks like it was, enacted 20 years ago, but amended, and the last amendment was in 2006 or 2005 and 6. And so I just wanted to know if Mr. Byrne, the Director of Administration, if you are aware of any type of methodology that had been discussed again or made available at that time. I don't know if this has ever occurred, but I'm wondering if they did in fact discuss a methodology for this type of COLA adjustment for this purpose. And then, of course, if that methodology is sound, perhaps we can adjust, it for these purposes that we are addressing today.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm not aware of any adoption of that methodology. You were quoting the actual adjustments to Social Security, and the numbers are pretty erratic. I mean, one year it was less than 1%, and last year and even I noticed this, it was 5.9%. So,
But-
you know, the federal government had a hard time explaining that too. But I'm not aware of any methodology that's been used to make an annual adjustment.
All right, well, they're using a methodology, the CPI, right? And we have a CPI, and our CPI is very similar to theirs. Well, from what I'm seeing from those years, the numbers are similar. And so, but the DOA was charged with coming up with a methodology, and obviously they haven't adopted one, or we would have been implementing it. But do you have that studies or anything that were done then, and what was considered? What types of methodology are available besides basing it on CPI, right?
CPI would be the obvious factor to use, because that's the kind of factor that everybody recognizes, that the federal government, as you pointed out, uses that methodology.
Yeah.
So if it were to be adopted or were to be actually actioned on Guam, I would agree that the CPI would be the appropriate statistic.
All right. Okay, so you're saying you have nothing, DOA, it's probably before your time when they did this, but are you able to see whether they have any type of?
I'm not aware, but I will certainly go and look in the archives and
Okay,
try and find it.
I appreciate that. Just, I don't want to, reinvent the wheel. If they've already looked at it and ruled out several things, and we can rule those out as well and stick to the ones that they focused on, right, as potentially reliable for Guam. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. That being said, Senator Shelton, your closing statement on your Bill 257?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you again for hearing this bill today, and for everyone who came out from the retirement fund and from the administration for being here to testify on the measure. And it was discussed in today's hearing about how we came up with these numbers, and what you and I have discussed as the budget chair is that this is a workable number that we can get assistance to the people right away. At the time that COLA was due last year, there were many retirees reaching out to us, asking us for any kind of increase to the COLA that we could bring to them in this fiscal year. And so this is one way that we know that we can make it work in the budget and help bring that relief immediately. And so I'd like to thank you for your collaboration and for your help to see this through in the next couple of months. Sidious Masi.
Thank you, Senator Shelton. That being stated, if there's any testimony, any additional testimony will be accepted by my office, and please submit it to the mailroom or the Guam Legislature through email at senatorjoesaugustin@gmail.com. And again, I want to thank everyone for attending this public hearing, for providing feedback and suggestion. Bill 257-36 Ellis is duly heard by the committee, and the public hearing is now adjourned. The time now is 2:39. Sidious Masi, please be safe. Thank you.